The next stage after the camera is we're going to look at doing the actual background. Okay, the background isn't too difficult in simple terms, if that makes any sense, but it is going to contain quite a lot of information. Now, one of the major things about the background is that it might not be built from a single image. It might not just be an image showing on the screen. I'm allowing you to create what are called tiled images, which is where you create a series of tiles. The best thing would be to show you, I suppose. If I just start a nice shareware program here, which I constantly use. For example, this is one of my level files I use for building the equivalent of Grand Theft Auto, called Grand Theft Auto. And as you can see, there's a series of little squares, and these squares are then assembled like a jigsaw puzzle to actually make the background. So grass is used as the standard background, and then there are sections which make road. These actually are weird, so aren't flags, they're actually bits of building, and they assemble together to make building. There's some water there, and there's some road and some bits of pavement and things like that. So what we're going to do is create everything we need. So you can choose to use either a single image or build a full tiled map if you wish. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight this using system.collections, and I'm going to add that as a separate item, not just the generic ones. That's because we're going to use something called array lists within this system, and array lists are really important, so I won't go into them in too much detail now, but we're going to need to put them in. We're also obviously going to be doing a drawing because it's a background, so I need to have my using system.drawing in here as well. I'm just going to save it where I'm up to. Now I'm going to give each of my backgrounds a name. This is really for making life easier for me when I'm looking at backgrounds in the future. And then the other item that I want to do is actually create a map of all the different tiles that I need to use. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a three-dimensional array of integers. And I'm going to initialize it with an x and y value of 0 and a z value of 2. Now the reason for this is, as you just saw on my tile map, I have up to 16 tiles across and 16 tiles down. And what this will do, this will actually be a reference number that says which tile is in which square. So I need to know the x and y coordinate, and the x coordinate will be stored at 0, 0, 1. 0, 0, 0, and the y coordinate will be 0, 0, 1. Don't worry too much about that at the moment. Hopefully it will become clear as you're going through it. I need to store the Z level for this particular background. As a standard, the Z level should be 0. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have the base image name. That's the name of the file name of where I'm going to get my tiles from. If it's not tiled, it will actually be the file name of the entire picture that makes up the background. You really should put comments in amongst all this code. So that might be an idea to put in at this point. Level map. X, Y, 0 equals map X value. X, Y, 1 equals map Y. Value, and in fact what I'll do is I'll make that into 2, because to grab the image from the base image, better comment there. Current Z level. This will give you a chance to catch up while you're typing. File name for the tiles base image. We want to know what the size of the overall level background is, so public size, image size. We need to know the size of each square tile. Now they can be rectangular tiles, so let's set that as well. I'll call that one, whoops, grid size I think. Now because we're going to layer multiple backgrounds on top of each other, there's going to be a colour which is going to be transparent, so you can do it to the layers behind it. So we need a transparency colour. If you hadn't guessed, I'm actually doing it from a design document as I'm coding here. I'm not doing this off the top of my head. It would be too difficult. If you draw the background, we're going to save it in an image. Now, what I mean by this, if you are planning to use really large backgrounds, it might actually be a good idea to generate the background as you go. So literally you work out where the camera is and you build it up based on the tiles. To make things easier for most people, what I'm going to do is build the background up of the tiles and store it as a bitmap in memory. Now, the bigger your background, the bigger the memory will be taken up, and you could end up taking up a lot of RAM. So if you're going to be running this on a PC that you don't really care how much RAM it needs, the program, it might make it run slower if it uses too much, you see, then carry on doing it this way. Otherwise you might have to limit the size of your level there. I'm building my sort of GTA style example that I've looked at doing already. I'm using 3096 by 3096 pixels, and then I zoom right in. I'm actually running the game, so it looks like quite a nice big world. It's not huge, it's not nearly as big as something like GTA, but it's big enough for making a game at this level. Right, we need a constructor, so let's put that in as well. Now, it's made up of two parts creating this. Background item string, which is going to be stored in our level file, and that will give all the information to actually populate things like base image name, image size, grid size, etc. And the map is a separate piece of code which actually says how you tile the graphic. It's made up in a complex way. Now, I've actually written a program for you guys to use to build your own maps quite easily. You just load in the graphic and then you can literally see the picture and click them and set up the map. And I'll actually show you how that works in the next video. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to create two new functions. Okay, so the first one is going to be called background level split, and that's going to take a background item as a piece of code. Okay, now you see it's got red under it because we've not created it. I'm then going to show you how to actually build the map. So let's start with the background split. The best way of doing those, right, we'll create it as a method. So if I just write public void, and I'm just going to copy that, and paste it in the wrong place, copy that and paste it there, remove the semicolon to turn it into a function. I'll see, separate out my curly brackets and tell the computer this is going to be a string. Okay, so how we're going to do this, first of all we need to actually split. It's going to be basically a list of items with commas between the items. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it into an array of items. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the background item, I'm going to split it based on because it's going to be a comma, I'll do it in this way. You have to tell it to create a new character array to split with, and then I tell it that the character item that I'm using is going to be a comma. That's why it's in single quotes, because it's a character, but the comma is what's going to be split on. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to set the name of the background to the first item on our list. The base image name is going to be the second one, so that'd be base items 1. The image size and width, if we set that, we're going to need to convert, because there'll be obviously a string and we need to turn it into an integer, so in 32 items 2. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to copy and paste that, because I'm just going to change that from width to height and make that an item 3. Actually, if I do it again a second time, if I change that now to grid size, copy and paste, and change that to width and height, I can make that items 4 and 5. So we've now got the image size and grid size saved. Transparent colour, I'm going to have as 3 colours, red, green and blue. So what I need to do is create this from colour from RGB, which is from red, green, blue. And then I'm actually just going to take my convert to int32 bit there. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it 3 times. That's the red, green and blue values. And the actual items are going to be 6, 7 and 8. So that's our transparent colour. Finally, I've better set the Z level, and again that's going to be another convert to int32, and that's going to be items 9. Okay, so we've split up our back level into the different base items that make it up. One thing that's really quite useful, because I'm going to be building a level editor as well, is having the ability to turn it back into the same string that we've just split up. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to actually create a function image. I'm now going to get my tile map out. So bitmap base image, because that's where my tiles are going to be stored, is in a new bitmap, and we can get it from the base image name. Okay. Like we did when we made our map, I'm going to do something quite similar here. Grid position and grid transfer. I'm going to need both those sort of values, because I'm going to go in the same way as I used a double while loop before. I'm going to use double while loop again. So this time I'm going to be drawing. So I'm going to create a graphics object. This is what allows me to actually draw to an object. I have to tell it which object I want to draw onto. So I'm going to draw onto the image. Image is like my canvas now. And the first thing I'm going to do is clear the image in the transparent colour. So I've just flooded. I've made the image totally transparent at the moment. Okay. Put an equal sign there. So what are we going to do? Right. I need to know where I am. This is going to be tricky. Let me just think a moment. Apologies on the video. If I create some variables first of all to find out, I'm going to do. Right, I'll explain these in a second as we go through. I'm going to use variables to actually save or a rectangle from my base image, from my tiles, onto the image, and I'm going to draw it at the location specified by grid position. So this is where my double loop comes in. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create, as you can see, a while structure that looks like that. I'm going to put a second one inside it, and I'm going to say while, same as before, so grid position dot y is less than grid transfer dot y, and inside this loop it's going to be grid position dot x. See, I'm getting myself confused now. Position dot x is less than grid transfer dot x. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to find out where the location is of the tile, which is obviously what we want to draw. So which tile we want to draw. That's 0 times the grid size dot, so times the width of the grid size. So if it's the first item along in our picture, if I load this picture up, this will probably make life a little bit clearer and easier. Right, my grid size here is 32 pixels. Okay, so if I start at 0, 0, that is 32 pixels. As you can see in the bottom corner, I've drawn a 32 pixel by 32 pixel square around that item. So if my item is at 0, 0, 0 times 32 is 0, so it goes to this point here. If I want to select this square, it's going to be, that's 0, this must be 1, so 1 times 32, which takes me to point 32, which allows me to grab this square here. That's what I'm going to be doing on this point here. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm grabbing the location x and y where this square is that I'm going to grab. Okay, so I'm going to do the same as I've just done there, but I'm going to do the same thing now with heights. Okay, so I need to leave that as x and y to get the item out, and height. Now where I'm going to draw it, it equals where I'm currently are on the map times the grid size dot. I hope that makes sense. That's where I'm drawing it onto the screen, onto the image. I'm going to do the same thing with y, but with height. Okay, and how I draw this image is actually quite straightforward. I do gfx.drawImage. Okay, hold on. I'm going to put the brackets in already. So the image that I'm going to copy from is the base image, and I'm going to build a rectangle. And the rectangle is at location x, at location y. This is the source, the destination rectangle where I'm going to draw to. Grid size dot width, grid size dot height, and then on this, I'm then going to draw another new the source rectangle is going to be at location. In fact, what I can do, to be really lazy, I can copy all of that, paste it in. Where it says at location, I'm just going to change it to location X, location Y, because this is the source on the actual tile form myself. And finally at the end I have to call it graphics unit.pixel. I have to tell it I'm working in pixels, not inches or centimeters or anything like that. So it's quite complicated. I can just press enter to make it clearer, hopefully, for you guys to be able to read. Drawing the base image is the tile map. I'm then drawing it onto my current background, and what I'm drawing comes from the location here in pixels. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I'm then going to move along by one. After I've done my entire row, I'm then going to move on to the next row. So again, I have to set grid position.x to equal 0 and move on to the next grid position. Okay. Once I've finished building my entire item, so I've come out of this while loop, the last thing I need to do is actually set the transparency colour again. And the way I do that is I say image.makeTransparent, because image is the name obviously of my my bitmap, and that's it. That will now draw the entire tiled background onto our background. The entire tiled image in the right place. Now I'm going to break this video up a bit. The next video we'll talk about all the other types of drawing that we might need to do on this background object. So we're not quite finished yet.